Today on Rappler, Barack Obama and Mitt Romney clash on foreign policy in their final debate before the U.S. presidential elections. The JBC begins public interviews for a new Supreme Court Associate Justice.
We have to build a regional bloc that will hold its own against China and India.
And a business survey ranks the Philippines as one of the most difficult places in the region to do business. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. United States President Barack Obama and Republican rival Mitt Romney clash on foreign policy in their final debate 2 weeks before Election Day. Obama accuses Romney of, quote, airbrushing history by dumping earlier conservative positions and says Romney is, quote, all over the map on foreign policy.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia, not al-Qaeda. You said Russia in the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. And the challenge we have, I know you haven't been in a position to actually execute foreign policy, but every time you've offered an opinion, you've been wrong.
Obama also dismisses Romney's claims that he had run down the armed forces to levels not seen since early in the 20th century.
But I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed.
Responding to a question on Iran's nuclear program, Romney says Iran's leaders saw a weak Obama administration and says the president went on a, quote, apology tour across the Middle East.
And then the president began what I've called an apology tour of going to various nations in the Middle East and criticizing America. I think they looked at that and saw weakness. And it's essential for a president to show strength from the very beginning, to make it very clear what is acceptable and not acceptable. And an Iranian nuclear program is not acceptable to us. They must.
The Judicial and Bar Council begins its public interviews with candidates for the new Supreme Court Associate Justice. On Tuesday, the JBC interviews 4 candidates: Court of Appeals Justices Ramon Bato and Rosemary Carandang, former University of Perpetual Help Law Dean Jose Santos Bisquera, and Sandiganbayan Justice Maria Cristina Cornejo. They're vying for the post left by now Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. Bayan Muna Representative Teddy Casino hits back after President Benigno Aquino's statements belittling his survey numbers. Casino responds to a media interview of Aquino in New Zealand, where the president mentions a leftist senatorial candidate who, quote, currently has 2.6% of the population voting for him, which is very, very little. President Aquino says the leftist groups were, quote, very good at propaganda, but adds if surveys are any indication, the unnamed candidate will not win a Senate seat. Casino strikes back. He says before his mother died, he did not even rate in any survey, nor was he considered by anyone to be of presidential caliber. In fact, he only became senator because of his lineage and the heroic efforts of his mother and father. The 2013 Doing Business survey ranks the Philippines as one of the most difficult places in the region to do business. Catherine Visconti tells us more.
We have to build a regional bloc that will hold its own against China and India.
These Philippine business leaders want the country to be competitive. They're at a forum to discuss strategy, specifically how closely the Philippines should work with its neighbors in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. Some say there's a thin line between cooperation and competition.
Rice and poultry are 2 of the biggest outputs from our agriculture sector. So what happens if lower price of rice becomes available from Vietnam and Thailand? What would happen to our farmers in the Philippines?
Food giant Jollibee gets 70% of its raw material from the Philippines. If regional tariffs were lifted, Jollibee may find cheaper goods elsewhere in the region, but executives worry that could hurt local farmers. However, the company's finance chief believes integration is the only way forward, and many other leaders agree.
We're very small, but as of now, we may have a say in the world economy. Now,
many leaders say that if the Philippines does not join in, it will get left behind. The International Finance Corporation ranks the Philippines as one of the most difficult places to do business in the ASEAN region. Businessmen say progress is being made on a national level, but there are still a number of problems, including infrastructure, particularly the airports, education, and technology. Some leaders suggest governments select a key group of companies that can compete on the global stage. The ASEAN Deputy Secretary General says members should focus on lowering barriers for trade and investments. But he doesn't go as far as supporting a common currency as the countries in Europe did.
This is something that we have to work towards, but I don't think the time is ready yet for a single currency discussion.
Regardless of how integrated the Philippines becomes, the country has a lot of work to do in key business areas.
We do have to prioritize infrastructure, energy, logistics. These are what you call the horizontal issues, things that affect everyone. There's a lot of work to do.
Be it a group relay or a one-man race, the Philippines will have to improve the local business environment first. Catherine Visconti, Rappler, Manila.
A Palawan-based organization wants plunder charges filed against Palawan Governor Abraham Khalil Mitra for alleged overpricing of roads from the 520 million peso Malampaya Fund. Documents from the Commission on Audit show each of the 21 roads constructed cost 20 million pesos. On Tuesday, Kilusan Love Malampaya says the group has documents not included in the COA report that suggests alleged overpricing.
We have documents that were not included in the COA report. These documents include the SARO that says, it enumerates the road projects, the bridge projects. That's 20 million each. That has absolutely no project documents. The COA did not include that. And that's why we're asking them, imploring them to hopefully reinvestigate. It doesn't take a genius. You don't even have to be an accountant. You don't even have to be an engineer. You can just be a normal person with common sense, and you can see something is wrong. The money was not put here.
In his first press briefing as Department of Transportation and Communications Secretary, June Abaya confirms the 10 peso MRT3 fare hike by 2013. Abaya says this is because government subsidy will go down to 35 pesos from 45 pesos per passenger, so it can afford continuing the rail transit's operations. He says the actual cost of transporting passengers from end to end of the railway is 60 pesos. Abaya adds the government is moving towards regaining full control of the rail transit before it bids out the rail's operation and maintenance under a public-private partnership scheme. He says full control means all decisions will emanate from policies of government rather than dealing with private interests. This means going against the group of Manny Pangilinan, Metro Pacific Investment Corporation. The group has rights over the MRT3 through its controlling stake in Metro Rail Transit Corporation. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 8, fresh from a short maternity leave, Yahoo chief Marissa Mayer reveals a revival strategy that includes making a priority of delivering the internet firm's popular online service to smartphones and tablets. Mayer's vision includes removing bureaucracy and laying out monthly goals for employees, as well as bolstering morale with perks such as free meals on campus and free Apple or Android smartphones. She says, quote, companies are all about people. The companies with the best talent win. At number 9, the maker of London's distinctive black cabs is on the verge of bankruptcy. Manganese Bronze Holdings was recently forced to recall hundreds of its taxis due to a safety defect in its new TX4 model. Its half-year losses widens to £3.6 million and still remains hopeful of a rescue by a Chinese investor. At number 10, a startup online news organization, All Sides, is trying to provide an alternative venue to provide a well-rounded view of complex stories. Taking off from the hairiest subject of them all, the 2012 U.S. elections, All Sides takes the major news stories of the day and add links to stories from the right, left, and center points of view underneath the headlines. In the series of the presidential debates, it lists 15 recaps written from across the political spectrum. Forbes notes that reading through the headlines, it's hardly believable the reporters watched the same debate. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Heads up, Marvel geeks! The new Iron Man 3 trailer is out. Fans of Tony Stark's adventures won't be disappointed with the latest installment of the Marvel film universe. The new Marvel film, coming out April 2013, features Iron Man's archenemy, Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley. Robert Downey Jr. will reprise his role as Tony Stark, along with Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts.
Some people call me a terrorist. I consider myself a teacher. Lesson number 1. Heroes. There is no such thing.
Every story on Rappler has its own mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click on how you feel, and your vote will come down to the middle of the front page of Rappler to the Mood Navigator, which crowdsources the mood of the day. 10 of the stories that have gotten the most number of clicks in terms of votes on the mood meter are also on the front page if you take a look. Today, government waivers on Clark as Philippines' main gateway, 64% annoyed, 11% happy. The making of a leader, this is Rappler's behind-the-scenes look at Rappler's interview with President Aquino, 76% happy. And the story that's gotten the most votes today, Aquino cracks Arroyo wheelchair joke in New Zealand. It's 19% angry, 19% amused, and 46% happy. Contributing to the mood of the day, today, most people are happy. Well, that's Rappler's Newscast for today, Tuesday, October 23, 2012. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.